let's just talk about the border because this is because this is an issue that again,
Good.
When Barack Obama left office, border crossings were at a 50-year low. That was one of his look. I have my issues with Obama, but that was one of his most unheralded successes. He deported over 4 million people. He was the deporter in chief. He could get away with it. He was a Democrat. Like so many issues, Trump, he went after good and bad immigration. So we have a situation now where our back door is too open and our front door is too closed. We're not issuing nearly enough H-1B visas, only 500,000. We could issue a couple of million easily. But anyway, the point is that James Lankford, one of the most conservative members of the Senate, he came up with a bill that almost every Republican said was the best border bill we were ever going to get. It didn't ask for amnesty for the Dreamers. It didn't ask for a path to citizenship the way most of these border bills do. But Donald Trump blew it up because he wanted to have a political advantage by a chaotic border. Now, the issue is the Democrats deserve some blame for this, because if I were running Biden's campaign, I would have him down on the border every day saying, this is how we were going to deport people, but Donald Trump blocked it. This is how we were going to reform our asylum system, but Donald Trump blocked it. This is how we were going to do this. So will you at least acknowledge that Donald Trump blew up the best border bill we've had in a long time, according to the most conservative members of the Senate?
According to the Senate, never made it to the House for a very good reason, because I ran on that issue also. And there were no net improvements to immigration enforcement. There was more money to allow them to process more people. If Biden can end it right now with an executive order, right? All of this border, it's 10 million new people under Biden alone. 10 million under Biden alone. That's the facts. He can end it because he started it. They want to get the folks in for votes. He's already processing the votes for them, right? And so, again, you can go back to other cases and talk about other presidencies. Right now, there's a border invasion. Biden won't go down there. They won't address the issue. The Republicans are also complicit, and the senators have to run statewide. And that's why they're more complicit, because all the billionaires who own the Senate and the House are cheap labor crowd folks, right? All of our big donors on the conservative side want cheap labor for efficiency, but they don't have to pay the education costs. 90% of education costs are state and local. An illegal comes in, they have 2 kids, that's $40,000 a year in taxpayer expense just for education. So the guy coming in, they're all created in the image of God. He makes 20 grand, but he's net negative 40. Math doesn't work out. So that's my short take.
Okay, well, first of all, again, this is another one, as Casey Stengel said, you can look it up, but illegal immigration is actually a net zero in terms of cost, because the education and healthcare costs that you talk about are wiped out by the cheap labor cost. And I agree, that's why we haven't had a serious immigration policy, is that the Republicans want the cheap labor, Democrats want the votes, but it's turning out that the vote thing is a little more complicated as you look at particularly some of the working class Latino voters and where they're going. But still, the bottom line is this was a very positive border bill on a lot of fronts, and Trump blew it up for political reasons. You know, you can argue about the merits of the bill. And that really leads me to my next question. This is a question.
Well, hang on right there. On the economics, you have to take in the full costs and benefits, right?
I am.
No, you're not, because illegal immigration is such a net negative. What you're doing is replacing the American worker, right? All net new jobs over the last year are part-time jobs. All net new jobs were part-time. The full-time jobs are negative. All net new jobs over the last 4 years have gone to alien workers, foreign-born workers over the last 4 years. So you're displacing the inner city and the low-skilled workers in America with cheap labor. Now, the full cost, you tell me what the number is, how many billions it takes care of when everybody goes on drugs, when all the kids in the inner cities are illiterate at the 4th grade level, 40% illiteracy, 90% in Manhattan. What's the full social cost of that? No economist will touch that with a 10-foot pole, because the foundations.
Well, you're conflating 2 different issues there. But putting that aside, the bottom line is that illegal immigrants create crimes or commit crimes at a much lower rate than Native Americans do. They also are harder workers, and a lot of the jobs that are filled. Look, if you want to pick strawberries in 110 degree heat, go for it. Most people don't want to do that. And if you look particularly after COVID, if we'd had a good immigration policy, we could have filled all these temporary jobs. There was a huge shortage of workers. And that's what having a good immigration policy allows you to do. It allows you to bring temporary workers over to fill the shortfalls. But Kerry,
Yep.
go ahead.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
on.
Well, there's a shortage of workers because a lot of kids are in their parents' basements with headphones playing video games. It's called the opt-out generation, and the workforce participation is down. And the Biden economists are working on a 4-day work week. The way to get the workers back in the workforce for cheap wages is not to give them welfare. There's a surprising correlation between starvation and wanting to work, right? That's called the good old days. These days, there's a free lunch for everybody at a Democrat voting booth near you. And until we end that, everything does go bankrupt.
Well, if you think people want to live high on the hog on $400 a month or whatever it is, then that's fine. I don't agree with that. But go ahead, Kerry.